Okay, so welcome. These are live, so I think there's a little bit of technical issues, but we're rolling with the punches. And today, I am so excited, Premier Education, a Talkin' Education, to have Trent Wotherspoon join us. So thank you, Trent, for coming on live, and we really appreciate this.
Thank you, Adam. Pleasure to join you and all those that have tuned in here today.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody that's tuning in. So what we want to do is we want to encourage you to put comments in below. We'll try to get it to as many as we possibly can. Click the like button, hit the smiley face, and let us know that you're liking what we're doing here. So before we get started, I wanted to introduce myself. So my name is Adam Hicks. I'm on the Regina Public School Board, and I want to put a little disclaimer in that the views represented in here do not reflect the school board, and it's a project by myself. And but I am so glad. I have to give. If I had an award, I would hand it over to you. Trent was the first of all the candidates to respond to the request. So I'm so happy you stepped up and you were the first person to send me that response. So.
Well, right on. I was pleased to see the priority being placed on education and thrilled that you extended this opportunity.
Cool. Well, thanks for having us. So we're here in Regina, and we're going to be doing a talk as we go. So we have some prepared questions that'll be coming up, but we also have questions from you, from the audience as well. So I've done a little bit of research, and I have a little bit on Trent in his bio. So he's worked as a teacher. Now this thing, I was at a recent event with the renaming of the Alan Blakely Center, and I did not know, they got up there and presented that you were one of three of the first teachers to start that school at the Alan Blakely Adult Campus.
Yeah, it was a tremendous honor back a number of years ago to work with a few other great educators as a local team to build out the adult campus and to serve 18 to 22-year-olds who were looking to complete education or to come in and upgrade and to build a campus that was individualized to meet the needs of those students and respective of those of their age. And it's been a tremendous honor to watch that program grow, that campus grow, and now to be named after a giant in my world and in our province, Premier Blakely. It's a tremendous honor, and credit really goes to the teams of staff and all the students that have made that place a success over the last decade and some.
Well, my sister went through there, so I know she appreciated her time there too. So that's,
it's an important program.
Yeah. That school's ballooned, though. And you can see that importance.
It has, and things like the child care center there that tied directly to, with students at that age, adults at that age, 18 to 22 years of age. That child care facility is a very important piece to meet the needs of those students.
Yeah. No, that's great. So I have on here too. You've been an MLA since 2007 in Regina, and you've been the critic for education and finance. So education suits that. Deputy leader and leader of the official opposition. So you've held a few titles.
Yeah, no, I've served now. Served as a teacher before. Served as an MLA for a decade now. Served as critic for a lot of our Crown corporations for education, for finance, as deputy leader, as leader of the official opposition, and now taking the step to run permanently for the leadership and to serve as the next NDP Premier of Saskatchewan.
Cool, I like it. Okay, so I did as much research as I could. It's a lot of work here. I scrolled through all your Facebook posts, and I got to, and we have it up on cue here, so we're going to cue it up. Let's cue it up. So I noticed there are numerous photos on rallies, and I on education rallies specifically, and there's other ones, but I had noticed you were at every one that I attended. You were at every single one of these things. So yeah. What are your thoughts on those and your attendance at them, I guess?
Well, I mean, there's really nothing more important than education. And right now we see, we'll get into this some more, but we see a real attack on our classrooms. And to work with Saskatchewan people to rise up against that attack and to fight for classrooms and to fight for that better way forward is something that is important to me. And it's just been so heartening to work with Saskatchewan people all across the province to stand up for our classrooms. And, those rallies, leave a mark on me. I recall one evening out in Fox Valley, almost on the Alberta border, with over 200 people at a gathering, local leaders standing up against the Sask Party's attack and takeover of democratically elected school boards and of the cuts. And of course, I could recount all sorts of other locations. But people value education in Saskatchewan, and it's a priority for me.
Yeah. One thing I've seen is the rally around education and the focus put on it. So through the consultation. But there's also the STF doing the Pick a Premier. I think that's a brilliant idea to make sure that all candidates have that on the forefront of their campaigns, and so I appreciate that.
Yeah, and for me, education's always been a priority. It's not new going into this leadership campaign. This is what motivates me, and I hope that teachers, I hope those that are engaged in education, I hope school board members, I hope parents get engaged at this time, and I hope to be direct, I hope they consider picking up an NDP membership, and I hope to earn their support.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Okay, so it's an interview. We've got to get to some questions here. We'll get to questions as soon as we can. What I want to do is we have a first question from a young student, I guess is how I'll introduce him as. So here's Corbin's question.
Hi, my name is Corbin Hicks. I'm in grade 2 and I go to Massey School. My question is, can we do more math?
So can they do more math?
Corbin, thanks so much for the question. What a sweetheart, first of all. That's the future of Saskatchewan right there, and we need to support and certainly math, and I think we've got exceptional teachers all across the province. But I'm also of the view that we need to be taking a holistic view of education and a whole child approach to education, and making sure that certainly we have the supports in place for students to excel at math and within our province, but also recognizing that we need to address some of those barriers external to the classroom that are a direct barrier to learning and to success. And I think we've just had a report that came out that highlighted that 1 in 4 children are living in poverty in Saskatchewan. I mean, this is heartbreaking, this is harsh, and this is a reality that no one in Saskatchewan should tolerate. And every teacher knows, every parent knows that learning is a non-starter if there's not food in one's belly or a safe, stable roof over one's head.
Yeah, no,
it's good question, Corbin. I was a math teacher before being
he would love
elected.
that. He would love to sit out, that's my son, so he
right
loves
on.
math. That's okay, so before we get into some of the prepared questions, we have a question here from Wendy. Wendy's question is, will you repeal Bill 63? And just for viewers that don't know, can you explain a little bit about what Bill 63 is first?
Well, Bill 63 was a really blindsided the education sector, and it represents a takeover of control, a consolidation of control away from locally elected school boards and into the Premier's office. And this is wrong. This is dangerous. So absolutely, I commit to repealing Bill 63, Wendy. This is very important. We need to make sure that we respect the autonomy of our locally elected school boards, and that we empower them to make decisions, that they have flexibility, and that, of course, they have the proper resources to meet the needs of students. So absolutely front and center as a commitment around education, and as part of my platform is to repeal Bill 63 and stop the damaging takeover of education.
So Wendy, I think that was a clear answer on and straight to the point. So just make sure, share this thing. Let's get more people on here to get comments. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Put those comments below on the video and hit the like button as we go through this. So we're going to go to our first prepared question. It comes from Allie, who is an education student at the U of R here. I believe she's in the fourth year of education.
So my name is Allie, and I'm a student in the education program here at the University of Regina. I'm in my 4th out of my 5th year in the secondary program with a major in phys ed, minor health, and minor science. And I'm just wondering what your vision for the K-12 education is here in Saskatchewan.
Well, thank you, Allie, and thank you for the commitment you've taken on, the studies you've taken on, and the difference you'll make in your career in classrooms within our province. My vision is to build the most enriched and engaging classrooms possible, and for me, that means we need to put respect and autonomy back in place for local school boards, ensuring that decisions are made in the communities that they impact, not consolidated in the Premier's office. We need to make sure that those school boards and those classrooms have the support they need. So we've seen a period of time under the Sask party where we went through a resource boom, where the government underfunded education throughout that period of time, leaving tremendous strain in classrooms. And now we're dealing with significant and damaging cuts. So we need to restore funding, but more than that, we need to boost funding to make sure that we're able to meet the needs of students, to be able to support our teachers, and make sure we do things like support the reduction of class size, the intensification of supports like educational assistants that have been pulled away from far too many classrooms and students because of the cuts. And we need to build modern classrooms that are preparing students for the economy of today and tomorrow. And that's, going to require making sure that we have good, high-quality, high-speed internet and classrooms all across our province and schools across our province, making sure we're supporting learning around things like computational thinking and supporting teachers to prepare students for that next generation. And of course, we need to teach our history within our province in an inclusive way, and that includes treaty education and acting on reconciliation in our classrooms. And that stands in stark contrast to what we see of late in this damaging and dangerous entry by the Sask party of late, questioning and threatening reconciliation, treaty education, Indigenous education. Clearly, we need to build inclusive classrooms that build a brighter future, and we need to build
in those headlines, and it's
and we need to build safe, inclusive schools for all. And I believe we need to make sure that we deal with matters of like racism. We need to make sure that schools are safe for gender and sexually diverse youth. And I've presented an investment that would support human rights and anti-oppressive educators all across the province to make sure those are the spaces we're creating.
So for those of you that don't know, there's if you go to Trent's website, trentforleader.ca/education, there is a platform on education, and I took a look. You can see my highlighted notes, and I a couple of those things that you just mentioned, I'm curious about. So the reduced class size. So would that mean more teachers within all of our 28 school divisions, or what does that look like? Because our class sizes, I think. Sorry to interrupt. I believe it's at 24 and a half. On average, 24 and a half students per teacher right now in some of our school divisions. And
in so many other classes much larger. And so really it's about making sure that our school divisions, our democratically elected school boards, have the proper funding. We've had a government that's really hasn't made education a priority, didn't fund it during a resource boom, and now are offering devastating cuts to the sector, not even funding enrollment growth. So you're a member, trustee in Regina Public, you have hundreds of students in classrooms right now that are not funded. So we need to make sure funding is proper to allow boards to respond to the needs of teachers and students to build those most enriched and engaging classrooms possible. And certainly reducing class size is an important goal within that. We hear often from teachers that are out there dealing with 30 students in a classroom, possibly 5 to 10 of those students with learning English as an additional language, 5 to 10 other students with individualized learning plans. This isn't an environment that creates the conditions for success for any student, so it fails all. We need to make sure those supports are in place.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Okay, so this question comes from the audience here, Jacqueline. The question is, are you going to put funding back into schools, yes or no? Where will you get the money? Oh, thanks, Jacqueline. That's a great question.
So the answer would be yes, absolutely. and not just stop the cuts that we see from the Sask party here that are causing a lot of hurt out in classrooms, but to make education the priority that it needs to be. And we have a government right now that's basically made choices I'd say that aren't decent. They've tried to send millions of dollars away to the absolute wealthiest, the biggest corporations within our province, and this is wrong-headed. This is not needed there at this time. We need to make sure those dollars are within classrooms, and we need to, my view is you have to have your fiscal house in order. This is a government that had no trouble racking up the costs with their mismanaged bypass that went from $400 million to $2 billion. Big checks going to the company from France. Those are dollars that we should be making sure are flowing into classrooms.
you would be making sure that that funding is increased within education.
That's right, and we know that education is an investment. So when we invest in education, when we invest in things like mental health, we're actually saving health costs down the road. We're building a stronger economy. We're creating a better fiscal environment for our province. So when you change early learning and education, there's a cost that society pays. There's a cost that every student pays, but it hurts us economically and fiscally as well.
Okay, so I hope that answers the question, Jacqueline. Thanks for submitting it. So we're going to move on to a prepared question from who's chair? Oh, the chair of a local school community council here. So Jill has a question.
The population of Saskatchewan is different today than it was even a few years ago, and we'll continue to see it change in the years ahead. Demographically, what challenges do you anticipate for the K-12 education sector? What about economic challenges, and what opportunities do you see?
Well, first, Jill, thank you so much for your leadership and your service to students and education with your involvement through the FCC. That's a really important involvement, so thank you, and thank you for the very good question. We do see demographic changes within our province, and education is on the front lines of those demographic changes, and we need to respond to it. As an example, we see a growing young Indigenous population within our province, and that's should be a really hopeful thing for our province. But it's not hopeful if the funds aren't in place. It's not hopeful if we don't have the supports in place.
So you mentioned earlier EAs. Is the focus to help support more EAs and help, because that diversity, it takes a lot on those teachers.
Well, all those pieces, we need to make sure that our classrooms have the supports they need. It's all about class size. It's about those supports. And importantly as well, it's about closing the gap on the injustice that is the underfunding of education on First Nations across Saskatchewan. How we think it's right that a kid can go to a school here in Regina and receive, almost twice the funding of a child on a First Nation is simply something that none of us should stand for, and impacts certainly the future of those children from a perspective of fairness in their future, but it impacts our province. So we need to make sure we have resources there. We also have students and families coming in from all over the world to build Saskatchewan, new Canadians. Yeah. And we need to make sure we have the supports in place for English as an additional language students, to make sure the supports are there to support settlement. In the end, we're all in this together. So we need to build, make sure we have the supports in place that builds a bright future for all, a province that works for everyone. Yeah. And as we look at the change economically as well, we need to be responding to, I'd like to grow a thriving tech sector here in Saskatchewan. We've got companies within this province that are punching well above their weight already, and we have tremendous opportunity on this front. We need to work with our classrooms and with education to make sure that there's those new opportunities from a job perspective for kids all across our province, and that we grow and diversify our economy.
Yeah, and it's important to keep up with that. So you mentioned the tech sector, and I believe that's important too. So, okay, I appreciate that. Next, we have a prepared question coming up from, so keep your questions coming. We'll try to get to more here. A grade 12 student, Jack is his name, from one of our local high schools here. So Jack has a question.
And my question is, do you believe that stable and predictable funding to the K-12 education sector could help increase graduation rates and reduce the achievement gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous students? Why or why not? Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Man, I'm encouraged about our future when I see young people, young leaders, young students like Jack advocating for for stable, predictable funding that's adequate to meet needs. And absolutely, Jack, this is incredibly important to make sure that we create the kind of opportunity in our province. I view education as the foundation of your future. It's the great equalizer. It extends opportunity. It improves equality. It's important for all. So this is very important to make sure that you have funding that's predictable and adequate, and clearly we don't have either of those things right now.
And we only get one shot at it too.
That's right. Yeah,
one shot is all we get.
That's right. No recalls with students. When they come off, when they come through the gates of grade 12 and on to new opportunities, you don't have a chance to go back, and so that's critical. And at the end of the day, I believe that we need to be working with our education partners to focus around engagement.
Okay, we're really sorry about that. I'm so glad Trent's willing to work with us on the tech issues, and I apologize about the live feed falling down there. So we're not sure if that last question got highlighted. So it was from Wendy, so we're just going to quickly summarize it again. Trent gave an awesome answer, by the way, and so Wendy asks, starting January 1st, education property taxes will go to the general revenue fund. Will you return the education property taxes to cities and then school divisions?
The answer would be yes. It's incredibly important that if you're collecting dollars for education through education property taxes, that they support the classrooms, that they support education. It's rather obscene that we have the Sask party this year hiking education property taxes by $67 million at the same time as they're cutting funding in a massive way to classrooms. And education property taxes and the property tax hikes that families are experiencing shouldn't be some sort of slush fund for this government to deal with things like its GTH. The education property tax needs to be dedicated to education.
Yeah. And I know our school boards would appreciate that too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have another prepared question. Luckily, before the feed went down, so we got one more, but I'm going to leave that one for a little bit. So we have a prepared question here that comes from a grade 2 teacher, Jason, in the education program. And the question is...
My name is Jason Shamel, and I teach second grade at École Massey. And my question is, the Saskatchewan K-12 education sector relies on partnerships. The SSBA, the STF, teacher associations, education sector labor groups, and the provincial government. Do you believe any changes are necessary to this model? Would you do anything to enhance these partnerships?
Jason, great question and an important one. You're talking about the education sector and vital education partners when you're talking about locally elected school boards and when you're talking about our teachers and the STF. And clearly this is a government that has disregarded and disrespected our education partners, the school boards that have been democratically elected, and teachers as well. And that doesn't serve students well. It doesn't create good policy. It doesn't make sure that we're meeting the needs of classrooms. So my view is you should be treating these vital education partners as just that. They're critical to be listening to be working with in a collaborative way, in a constructive way, and that's what's ultimately going to allow us to build the best classrooms possible.
Well, that's great answer, Trent. Okay, so we have another education student actually from the U of R, and her name is Bailey. She has a question for you.
Hi, my name is Bailey Braden. I'm in my 5th year of 6 in the education program. My major is health and my minor is phys ed. And I was just wondering what aspects of the K-12 education program that you're proud of and what aspects do you find challenging?
Well, thank you, Bailey, and really a good question. I'm really proud of our educators, our education workers, our teachers. I think we have the world's best. And I know that they sign up for that duty, that service to make a difference each and every day in classrooms all across Saskatchewan, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful as well of how we embrace education as a community, and that stems from our democratic, locally controlled school boards through to the relationship that communities have with education. So that's a really good thing. What challenges me the most is the dismissive and disrespectful approach from the Sask Party government. Not dealing in good faith with teachers, not dealing in good faith with school boards, and not investing in education to make it the priority that it needs to be. And this puts so many that are so dedicated in a really difficult position. In fact, it's demoralizing for educators, it's demoralizing for school board members, and it's hard on students when you don't have neither the relationship, the respect, or the funding that our students deserve.
Cool. Well, thanks. We appreciate that collaboration, and that is extremely important. So we have, so from the last of the questions before the live feed went down, we have a question from John. It says, 1/4 of children in Saskatchewan are in poverty. Half of Indigenous students are in poverty. How should education react to this?
Well, this is one of the harshest realities that none of us should accept. And to see that this problem is getting worse. 1 in 4 children in poverty in Saskatchewan. I think as I mentioned before, teachers know this, students know this, all know this, that if you don't have food in your belly or, safe, stable roof over your head or, to be honest, your mental health or that of your family, then learning is a non-starter. So we need to certainly make sure we're supporting our classrooms. You'll see in my plan that I commit to bolstering lunch programs and addressing food security to make sure that students have the nutrition they need to learn. But we need to be dealing with those things external to the classroom that are a direct barrier to learning. I've committed to universal mental health and addiction services, to commitments around housing, to acting in a meaningful way to address poverty. These are they impede the ability of young people to be as strong as they can be, and certainly they impede learning. And I believe our province will only be as strong as it can be when every last young person and people all across our province are as strong as they can be.
Well, I like how you said external stakeholders too, because I know a lot of teachers from the ones that I talk to, they feel like that's always downloaded on the teachers, and they're not experts in a lot of those fields. So anyway, I know our teachers would appreciate that.
And if you go to my plan, I have a lot more both on poverty, but also the response through education and making sure that we're taking an interdisciplinary approach to these matters, making sure that we understand, have action where it's needed within the community external to the classroom, and making sure we have the supports in the classrooms where they need to be.
That's great. It's great to hear. Okay, so before we move on to some of the last questions here, I had a quick little quiz, and we did not prep Trent on this. So Trent's quiz, because of his background in being a teacher, it's some teacher facts, and these will be true or false. And I really want to see if these myths can be I want to see if these myths are true. So, with your teacher background, do real teachers never sit down without first checking the seat of their chair? True or false?
You should be cautious for sure with your chair, and that's right.
Depends on how good of a teacher you are.
That's right. No, watch your chair. Watch your chair. Yeah.
Good answer. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one. Real teachers have never heard an original excuse.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of repetition there, but this is this prepared me well for life in the legislature. Prepared me well for question periods. So
that's good to hear. Okay, true or false? Real teachers know the difference between what ought to be graded, what should be graded, and what should never see the light of day.
I think that's probably a fair comment. Absolutely.
So you can just, as a parent, sometimes that's hard to see through those lines, but I think a teacher can see those barriers. So, next one here. True or false? Real teachers do not take no for an answer unless it is written in a complete sentence.
I'm a math teacher, not a language arts teacher, so.
I should have a math one here, but that's right. And last one, real teachers hear the heartbeats of crisis, always have time to listen, know they teach students, not subjects, and that they are absolutely non-expendable.
Yeah, I think there just couldn't be a truer statement there, and that's the teachers I know across Saskatchewan, that's the teachers I worked with, that's how I served, and you're there to serve students, and teachers are difference makers, and they do it every day. And it's hard when they're in conditions that don't allow them to be as effective as they can. It can be demoralizing. But to the teachers all across this province, I say thank you. And I know the conditions are tough right now, but I say to you, we need you. The impact you're making today in classrooms is enormous. And I really want to make education a priority, and we need those leaders in our classrooms to be there and ready to work together. We really need to empower our educators. There's been far too much a sort of a top-down standardization of the role of the teacher, and that's not what teachers signed up for. Yeah. They're professionals, they have autonomy, they know their learners best, they know their schools best, they know their families best. We need to make sure they have the supports and the autonomy to respond to those needs.
Great. Okay, thanks Trent, great. So we have two last questions, prepared questions. This one comes from Alex, who is a grade 9 student in one of our high schools here.
Hi, my name is Alex, and I attend Maboldus High School in grade 9. My question for you is, what other ideas do you have about helping the K-12 education sector achieve the best results for all Saskatchewan students, including myself?
Well, thanks, Alex. Important question, and thanks for asking it. It's it's about making sure that we're responding to the needs of students today, and making sure that we provide our school boards and our classrooms and our teachers the flexibility that they deserve. And ultimately, I think it's also very important that we recognize that we need to support the whole child, and that we're supporting creative minds, that we're supporting citizens, the development of citizens and leaders that are independent thinkers within the world around them. And I'm a big believer in experiential education and focusing on things that really draw in students and engage students. So I think that, if we're talking about ways to support learning, I think there's all sorts of ways that we can support flexible education and in all sorts of rich learning environments, through experiential education, through outdoor education, through recognition of all the needs of a student.
Cool. That's really good to hear. Okay, and our last question comes from actually Regina City Councillor Andrew Stevens, and he has a question for you.
If you could do one thing today, and cost was not an issue, to improve the K-12 system, what would it be?
Thanks, Andrew. Good question, and thanks for your leadership on council as well. At the end of the day, we need to empower students, empower our teachers, and make sure the dollars are there. I think actually we need to stop dictating from the Premier's office and stop that takeover. So let's stop that takeover and put the dollars in place that allow the response of the professionals in those classrooms, our local school boards, to respond to needs and just create the most rich learning environments for students across Saskatchewan. And I'm a big believer of the whole child education. So we've really, through the underfunding, we've really seen an attack on sort of what was the community model of education. We need to make sure the resources are there to respond to the needs of all students and the needs of communities.
So if I had to sum this up from this interview, and I would say the common theme was funding, and funding being reinvested back into our school divisions. And I know as a trustee that we would appreciate that. And
I hope it's funding, and I hope it's also respect and empowerment. I think it's very important that the funding is there, but I think that we really need to empower our school boards, empower and trust in and lean on our teachers, our education workers in our communities, and really make sure that those environments are engaging for students and reflective of today's today's society and today's economy and where we're headed.
Yeah. No. So I appreciate your time, Trent, and I'm so glad you're able to roll with the tech issues, and that's a true show of character. So
hey, I'm a teacher, so I'm used to things going sideways in the middle of a lesson plan, and teachers all across the province will know when things go sideways with high-speed internet or whatever else. So they'll probably relate quite well to the realities we faced in this. Just thank you to you for your service as a trustee, and thank you for putting the focus on education at a very critical time within our province right now, Adam.
So important, and thanks a lot. Appreciate it. I want to thank you again for tuning in, and it's important to make your voice heard. One way to do that is to vote. The deadlines are a little different for each party. The Sask Party Leadership Convention is January 27th, 2018 at Prairie Land Park in Saskatoon. However, the deadline to purchase a membership and to be able to vote for your new party leader is December 8th, 2017. And the NDP Leadership Convention is March 3rd, 2018 at the Delta Hotel in Regina. The deadline to purchase a membership is January 19th, 2018. I would like to encourage you to share this post, hashtag it Premier Education, and make sure you click that you like the post as well. I want to further encourage you that if you found this valuable, like the @Adam Hicks Regina School Board page, click on the like button. You can also ensure that you get new notifications coming up. So notifications for new videos, you click on following, you click on see first, and you click on events and all live videos. So next time we have a live video, that'll be the first thing you'll see is when we're tuning in with a new candidate. Thanks a lot. Take care. The Premier Education Campaign is created by Adam Hicks, Trustee of the Regina Board of Education. The opinions expressed in this project do not necessarily reflect those of the Board of Education or Regina Public Schools.